Welcome to the TepFu Lazy Marking Hour podcast. We've got an exciting podcast for you today. If I can manage to do it without coughing once, that will be incredible. I hope you're all as excited as we are for the end of one year and the start of another. Today, we're going to talk about something really important, and we've got a fantastic panel here. I'll intro you to the panel, then I'll intro you to our special guest, and we will start by speaking to our special guest for about 10 minutes about what we want to talk about today. Without further ado, let me introduce you to Simon Hutchings. Simon Hutchings, creative legend. Hello, Simon.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. Next up, and it's never in any order, by the way. Let me introduce you to Adam Cockrell, the code legend, the digital marketing legend. Hello, Adam.
Hello, Al. Hello, panelists. Hello, Sarah, and hello, everyone watching.
Nice one. Rachel, can you do better than that? Hello to Rachel, not the copywriter extraordinaire. Are you there?
Hello.
Hello. Brilliant. Well, there's only one person left to introduce. Obviously, you all, I hope by this point you know who I am. I'm very loud. It's very hard to not know. But there's probably someone that you don't know. It's a lot quieter than me. Her name is Sarah Jane Tepper. And before I introduce it, yes, the name isn't accidental. I happen to be Sarah Jane's partner of almost 20 years this Christmas. Sarah Jane, are you there? Say hello.
I am. Hello, everybody. I was about to say I have no idea who you are. I've never seen you before in my life, but
excellent.
Yeah, 20 years.
20 beautiful, wonderful, long, intense.
We'll talk about that later.
We've gone through a lot, and some of it will come up in our conversation today. So we're going to talk today about the impact of trauma on marketing. And most people, including our panelists, when they first heard this title, went, huh? And then Adam, I think, got it first, because Adam does a lot of work on himself and is in tune with this. And then I think Rachel got it, and she got it by not getting it, and it was a wonderful moment in the green room where she said, I don't quite get the topic, but I'm this, and we're like, that's the point. And then Simon waded in, bringing up the rear, and the pennies are dropping for all of us now. So first of all, why don't we start by just taking 30 seconds to tell everyone what you do, and then the first question I'd like you to answer is, when we say trauma, what do we mean by trauma? So, Sarah, tell us.
So, hi everyone. Hi, Adam, Rachel, Simon. First of all, what I do is I'm a holistic therapist, which I can never say, and a holistic therapist. So I do body work, massage, reflexology, pregnancy work. I'm a Reiki master as well. Trauma it's a tricky topic to kind of articulate and identify. The reason we're here essentially is because as business owners, as parents, as husbands, as wives, in our adult life, the way we are, the way that we work, the way that we present ourselves is all related to things that happen in our childhood. And trauma is, on a grand scale, lots of people have been through horrendous trauma. I'm talking about neglect, abandonment, abuse, sexual abuse. But we may have grown up in an environment, and now the best example I can give you is my own. I had a seemingly happy childhood, but I grew up with a father that was very angry, and he himself as a child was neglected and abused. And I grew up with a very angry mother. And so I grew up in an environment, I was also an only child, where I learned to keep myself small. I kept quiet. I was made to feel guilty and ashamed a lot of the time. I don't know if you hear that noise, by the way, it's one of our dogs. It's Loki, he's not happy. So that's manifested in my life as an adult and how I relate to people now and how it's affected me. And we've all been through something like that. You know, it might be that we grew up with a father that was a workaholic and was never present for us. And the message that sends to us is that work is more important than you as a child. And because dad was a workaholic and wasn't present, mum was upset and angry all the time because she had to do everything. It might be that we grew up with a parent that was unwell all the time and we had to be their primary carer. which is an explanation for the profession that I'm in, because I've become a healer, someone that wants to fix people, someone that wants to help. So anyone in that kind of profession, well-being, health, nurses, doctors, we want to help, we want to heal people. And it's worth starting to think about, you mentioned it prior to coming on, that why are we in the professions that we're in? Why has it led us to be a creative director, to be a copywriter, to be a digital expert, to be a marketing expert? So trauma, in a nutshell, is something that happened to you generally as a child. Obviously, traumas happen to us as we go through life. Something might have happened to us. We might have been in a car accident when we were in our 20s. We might have gone through a messy divorce, but it all stems from childhood and prior to childhood as well. Your parents and your grandparents and how they manifest their trauma. And I hope I'm not out of line by saying that most of us here are in our 30s, 40s. So our parents, our grandparents would have grown up post-war, which was a huge blip in society. That was a very, very traumatizing experience. And when a baby is in the womb, even, if the mother is stressed and her cortisol levels are high, that's going to be passed down the placenta to the child. And it's all about implicit memories. As a baby, we might not remember things. We might not remember that our parents were stressed. But it's an implicit memory of mum not being there, dad not being there. More importantly, them not being able to show up for us emotionally. And so as we become adults, we question everything, because when we're children, we're not able to process. Our mind is not able to process those bad things. So we have to draw conclusions. And it leads to judgment. So that's the key here, judgment. What stops us from expanding and being these amazing, beautiful quantum beings is this layer, which is the mind. And the mind judges. What we need to do is let go of judgment, and then we're able to allow in those energies and those frequencies that are more powerful than our mind ever is. I hope that makes sense.
That makes immediate sense. First thing, can you let the dog out? Because otherwise he's going to moan and we can hear it, and people will think we're killing a dog. The dog is safe. He's just addicted to Sarah Jane, and she, in her wisdom, has left him in the kitchen, and he will not stop until she lets him out. So, or puts him somewhere else. So we'll wait for Sarah Jane to come back.
Neglect.
It's just, yeah, abandonment. Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like Loki's going through trauma right now.
The dog is very traumatized in the absence of Sarah. Absolutely. And he will not let her forget it, believe me. We won't.
Did you say traumatized dog?
Well, we said it's abandonment, it's trauma. You know,
neglect.
He's living
really.
in neglect. He's living in proof. So it's fascinating, because the reason we're here talking about this today is because everything we do in business, and certainly in marketing, and the whole podcast, the whole point of it is about marketing. But I deal with lots of clients who are held back in their marketing. They can't take the risk, they can't be brave, or whatever it is. One of the biggest buzzwords of the last few years in business and marketing is imposter syndrome. The whole existence of imposter syndrome is evidence, total. It's a smoking gun as to why this stuff matters. The fact that we have imposter syndrome as a thing is because, not because of our mindset, but because of that which underpins our mind. And what you were talking about earlier, you know, Sarah, reminds me of the power of story and how our story is set for us. Can you just dig into that a bit? Because around judgment and forgiveness, if we go further back, we've got mind and trauma, but then the trauma is shaping something in us, isn't it?
Well, the trauma, there's an amazing book called The Body Keeps the Score by an author called Bessel van der Kolk. And he says that trauma isn't what happens to you, it's what happens in your body as a result of what happens to you. So for every emotion that we have, particularly in business, you know, if we're dealing with clients, employees, bosses, and there's lots of emotions flying around, there's always a feeling that underpins that emotion. So when we go through trauma, it's what happens in our body. It's that visceral feeling. It's that lump in the throat. It's that burning in the back of the neck. It's that knot in the stomach. It's that hammering heart pounding away when you're feeling anxious and don't know where to go. And when we're children, we're not often shown how to self-soothe. And so there's two roads that we can take when we're struggling in childhood, when we're faced with a crisis. And those two paths are, there's something wrong with my parents, or there's something wrong with me. And most people take the path of, there must be something wrong with me. And the feeling, that visceral feeling, is an energy. That's all it is. Emotions don't even matter. We don't even need to know what those emotions are. You know, when someone triggers us, we react, don't we, all the time? And that's what blocks us. It's that judgment. It's someone says something to you and you react. And it's taking that reaction and that feeling it gives you in your body, that visceral sensation in your body, and breathing into it and reminding yourself it's just an energy. It's just energy. That's all it is. It actually probably doesn't even matter. And when people say things to us that trigger us, it's nothing to do with that person, ever. It's always about us. It triggers us because we have trust issues. It triggers us because we have anger issues. We have to be adult and intellectual and curious to go, okay, what's the trigger? Why is that triggering me? What do I need to work on? And that trigger is actually a sign from the universe. The universe has sent you that person to test you. And we can go, oh, do you know what? I've never liked that person. They're always on guard. They're this, they're that. We judge. It's not that person at all. It's us. It's what the universe is telling us, what's going on with you. Come on, you can get past this. It's just a feeling. So we have to breathe into that feeling, and then we can, I don't know if transmute's the right word, but we can turn that energy into creation, something more powerful. Because what happens is we get stuck in our head. We go, right, anger. Where's that coming from? Where's the origin? Who's responsible for that? Who am I going to blame here? And our mind just goes, and we come out of our body. We need to get back in touch with our body. We need to come back to our core, to our breathing, to our breath, and remind ourselves that, does that actually matter? Does that, just because that thing happened 20 years ago and I'm still holding on to it, does that really matter? Is it really that important? Is it really worth putting myself through this heartache because of that thing that happened 20 years ago? So how that relates in business when it comes to marketing, especially, which is a big fundamental part of our business world, particularly if you're a business owner, is our mind goes, whoa, no, I'm not quite ready. I'm not there. I'm not feeling the energy today. That person's upset me. This has happened, that's happened. I can stack it up with a load of things that have happened to me today as reasons why I can't move forward with my marketing. I can't move forward with my creative ideas. And it's actually, I'm not going to swear, but it's all BS and nonsense. And our head makes up a story. And do you know why it does that? To protect us. Because when we were kids, that's what we had to do. We made up a story to make us feel safe, to connect the dots, and to make us go, okay, right, here's the picture. I can see what's happening here. I hope that makes sense. Talking about trauma is really difficult, particularly if, you know, it's not a subject that you're familiar with. I mean, I know that maybe a couple of us here delve into it. You know, we do the work and we delve into it. We look into, you know, I've looked into polyvagal theory. I've looked into PTSD. I've looked into depression, into autism, ASD. I've read every book going. It's a minefield. It is. But it's as simple as we have infinite possibilities available to us, being fed to us from the universe. We are made up of trillions of cells and organelles. And we're in alignment with the planets, which are also made up of systems and organelles and atoms and photons. And we all work in this kind of orbit, rotating around each other. And the universe feeds us all these billions of pieces of information. But our mind, it gets to a point, there's all these layers. So if you look at this, I don't know if you can see this sheet here. In the middle here, all of these vibrations going out to the universe. And there's this one layer, this red layer here, I don't know if you can see that. That's the mind. And it's, if you imagine arrows coming into this picture, but deflecting off of that red line, which is our mind. And it's our minds going, no, I'm not good enough. This is out of my comfort zone.
And it's doing that to protect us.
Yeah.
Just to remind us.
Yeah, and it serves us, it has a purpose in the moment, in that time, but then it no longer serves a purpose. So it's all about moving past that.
This is, I mean, I can feel how the panel's minds are, because I know them well enough. And this is, if this isn't the most mind-blowing discussion we have all year, I'll be impressed to see what is more mind-blowing than this. Because you said something really important. You know, we're quantum beings, and what you meant by that, I presume, is that we have, you know, infinite capability and infinite possibility, and we're just, you know, human beings. I mean, all animals, all organisms are beautiful and amazing, but obviously we're going to be anthropocentric here and love humans more because we're humans. We are incredible. And you said something in the green room, or maybe it was the green room, the discussion we were having last night, Sarah, about we're all creators. And in this room right now, I'm a marketing creator, Simon's a creative creator, perhaps the most creatory of all of us, if that's a word, creatory. Rachel's a word creator, and Adam is a digital creator. But creating is in our DNA, but it literally is in our DNA. The problem is that red line stops stuff coming in, but it also stops stuff going out, doesn't it? It doesn't just protect us by stopping stuff coming in, it protects us by, you know, imposter syndrome, things like that, right?
There is no there's no fear or anything that can come in to us, actually. We just, from the way we were brought up, the environment we grew up in, have learned to be defensive. We've learned to go, no, no. You know, we're used to kind of stiff arming things and going, not right now. We're creative beings. We're here to create. That's what we're here for. That's our purpose in life. We're all creative human beings, and we're just creatives living in. We're quantum beings. I won't go too far into this because a lot of people might go quantum beings, but we're quantum beings living at the moment in a human body, and we have infinite ideas, possibilities available to us, but we don't always allow it to come in. You know, when we feel a vibration that doesn't feel right, that doesn't feel comfortable, we go, no, I'm not comfortable with this vibration, so I'm not going to let it in. But there's nothing to fear. The only thing that stands in the way of that beautiful universal energy is our mind. That's the only thing, and it's the judgment of the mind that stops us. We judge. I've judged myself in my life so severely. It's held me back so much, and I've got to an age now, I'm 47, and I'm only just going, oh, I know what I need to do. Oh, simple, right? But it's not. For some reason, the way that we live our lives, particularly nowadays with social media, it's all about people pleasing and perfecting. And if we're not doing that, then we're doing something wrong. And people pleasing and perfecting it's laborious work. It is tiring. It's exhausting. We're not, you know, we're hardwired to care what people think about us. That's the whole thing about this discussion. It's a bit of a nuance because it isn't. There's no two sides of the coin. It's the kind of, there's the spiritual and the science, and all of it's true. It all comes together. There's no right, there's no wrong. There's no, well, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. What we have to remember is that no one's to blame. We're so quick to blame and shame in society, but that's wrong. Everyone's going through their struggles. Everyone gets mental blocks. Everyone gets to a point in their business, particularly if it's a business that's well established and you've been doing this for 30 years, and you get to a point where you go, I'm not really up with the latest technology, I'm not quite sure where to take this. That's where we get stuck. But as long as we communicate and we ask the right questions, and we have to be open to having those uncomfortable conversations. You know, a lot of reason why business leaders fail is because they don't want to have those uncomfortable conversations. They avoid it because it's a vibration that's coming in that they don't want to have to feel. We don't want to feel. And when we don't feel, we push it down, we suppress, or we depress, hence depression. We depress it because it's too uncomfortable for us to handle and to deal with. And the only thing that the number one cause of energy blockage is emotional, unresolved emotions. That's the number one cause of energy blockages. So when it comes up, you don't even have to know what it is. Is it anger? Is it frustration? It doesn't matter. It's a feeling, it's an energy. Feel it, breathe into it, sit with it. Because once your cells and your mind, this is a contradiction now, isn't it? Once every cell in your body starts gravitating towards, actually, there's nothing to be scared of, it will welcome it in instead of rejecting it.
Amazing. Totally. I'm hoping the panel are festooned, that's a great word, festooned with questions. I don't know if I've used it correctly. I'm sure Rachel would correct me later if I used it incorrectly. I've got so much to say. The first thing is, clearly, the golden nugget already from this discussion is the biggest reason business leaders fail is because they're afraid to feel.
The mind gets in the way. The mind gets in the way. Yeah.
Well, they rationalise it to keep themselves safe. Yeah.
And then once you start that thought process, once you start that thought process of, you know, what's going on for me here, who's to blame, your mind starts spiraling, and then you get lost and distracted. You need to come back.
Before we go to the panel, so panel on the ready, a practical example of this. One of my clients in the last couple of weeks runs a business, had a great opportunity to talk about something on LinkedIn. And I happened to be coaching them that day. And I said, well, why don't you talk about it on LinkedIn? And they said, I don't want to talk about it on LinkedIn because I might tip off my competitors and then they'll all talk about it on LinkedIn. And I said, but that's bananas. What? Because they probably think exactly the same thing. Is anyone talking about it on LinkedIn? No, right. Well, do you think if you're the only person talking about it on LinkedIn, you might find new business? And they were very skeptical. And I coached them / encouraged them / strong arm them, frankly, into posting on LinkedIn. And within 24 hours, they had 4 new customers. Now, that person has not been posting on LinkedIn for over 15 years. And this is the practical implication of what we're talking about here today. So if you're watching this and you wonder why you're not playing a bigger game, you're not more visible, you're not doing more, you keep getting distracted, whatever it is, when it happens next, I challenge you to sit with the feeling that comes up in you. Why don't you want to do that thing now? Why don't you want to be visible on LinkedIn? Why don't you want to do this? Why don't you want to do that? This is what we're talking about. Because the only thing that stops us doing more stuff that is going to help us is us. There's no one, you know, I'll say I'm slightly chubby, to be generous to myself. As a slightly chubby man, the only reason I know I'm slightly chubby is because I haven't done what I need to do about it. For the first 45 years of my life, I blamed everybody else. It wasn't my fault. I mean, for the first 15 years of my life, I didn't decide what food to eat. You know, living at home, so it's not my fault. It's just BS. It's permissioning yourself to carry on not doing something that actually you want to do. And it creates this war internally, doesn't it, between the self and the mind. So this concept of how the mind holds us back. And there are books like The Chimp Paradox that talk about how the mind can sometimes be an enemy as well as a friend. That's what we're talking about today. Right, enough of the Teppers. Panel, Sarah, amazing work. You'll be getting, I'm sure, some questions from the panel, I'm hoping. Who would like to volunteer to go first? Well, Rachel's unmuted. That's it.
I'm coming in.
Get in.
I've been thinking about this the whole time that you and Sarah were talking just then. I've been thinking, and I think procrastination is like the ultimate symptom of all of this. I see it in myself. I hugely procrastinate on my own marketing. And I like to come up with reasons that I'm procrastinating, which is I'm very busy with client work, or I'm focusing on these other things that I need to do, or I've got loads of work already. My marketing isn't my priority, yada, yada, yada. Actually, the reason I'm procrastinating is because I'm fearful. And I said to you guys beforehand that I am a ball of anxiety when it comes to my own marketing. I have clients all the time that I can tell feel the same as me about their marketing. And it's very clear to me what they need to do. And it's very clear that they need to just crack on and do it. And, and I can help them with the words, and I have people who can help them with other things, but they are in their own way. They find it very difficult to just take action. And I think that's such a problem as business owners that we all have. We're constantly coming up with reasons not to take action. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. I don't, on the surface level, I don't feel a fear that I'm going to fail, but somewhere there is a fear sitting there, perhaps subconsciously, a fear around perfectionism, a fear around judgment, like you say. And the ironic thing is that off the back of that, I heavily judge myself for procrastinating. So then I'm beating myself up for also procrastinating, which isn't helpful either. So what I'm trying to say, I think, is that when I see clients that are very much in their own way when it comes to marketing, and they're not allowing things to move forward, they're stopping their own business from moving forward, I get it, and I do exactly the same. And then I beat myself up for it. So it's kind of nobody's safe. Even marketeers working in marketing every single day, we have the same struggles, we have the same problems with our own business. And yeah, it's very easy to see how that happens.
I massively relate enormously, and Al's been instrumental in helping me overcome certain things, but it's like you said, Rachel, I find it's story. That's what I've been understanding. It's the mind, it's the stories that I tell myself. I get very overwhelmed with my own marketing, and I'm conscious that I ask clients to perform certain tasks. Al and I were just talking about it earlier, and and everyone kind of struggles with the same stuff. I do find it fascinating to understand where these stories come from, and I do find it helpful to look at those stories. Something that Al helped me realize was that there really is no story other than the one that we create. So I've been able to implement that in certain situations where I've been able, through self-reflection, I'm like, okay, I'm the one who's telling myself that when I turn up at this meeting and present, no one's going to find what I say valuable and interesting. I'm the one telling myself that. I'm the one, as you said, Sarah, judging myself. I'm the one expecting this judgment. But actually, how do I know really what anybody else is thinking, and whether or not they're judging me, or whether or not they even read my post, But immediately I'm putting that judgment on myself. And I'm massively insecure about posting on social media, personally and professionally. And what's interesting to me is that I used to be incredibly active on social media. And I think when Facebook first came out a long time ago, and I was all over it. And nowadays I shy away from it. And I think that from my story and my trauma, I've done a lot of work to see that the way I was interacting with social media was perhaps unhealthy for me, and based off of trying to fulfill a need that I didn't receive in childhood: attention, validation, something like that. So I've understood that story, and therefore my interaction with that platform has changed, but I still have work to do to overcome the judgment and shame around and fear around posting. And that's ultimately what's holding me back, and that is ultimately within my control. There needs to be some work to be done around that, but it's all coming from within me. That's where the block is. And I find it absolutely fascinating.
So I come in. So firstly, can I just start a campaign for Sarah Jane Tepper to do a TEDx talk? Because I was absolutely captivated by 21 minutes of her talking, and it just, everything clicked and clicked and clicked, and it was like a load of little cogs ticking away in my mind. So well done, that was an incredible introduction. And I definitely think there's more to be done there with you on stage for sure. I've got loads of bits and pieces here that probably don't make any sense to me now of looking at what I've written down, but just going back to what Rachel said about perfectionism. Oh yes, being a creative, geez, you know, it's a nightmare. And I'm very open when I speak to customers to tell them that when I rebranded Visualize 4 years ago, I didn't do the creative. You know, I took myself through the process because I knew very well that if I even touched on that creative part of that I would probably still be trying to get it to be perfect right now. So, you know, it's much easier for me to instruct someone else to do it with my guidance, with me taking myself through our process, and to see the output and then go, oh yeah, that's it, you know, and get it because someone else has got into my mind and been able to extract what they need to extract to get there. So I totally get that perfectionism thing. It can really hold people back. What Adam was talking about, judgment as well. I think it's a massive thing, isn't it, about, you know, really understanding where your knowledge lies as well, and being able to be confident in expressing that knowledge in such a way that, you know, you don't have any hesitation over that. And I think one of the things that helped me a few years ago, and partially down to Al kind of guiding me in the right direction, and it's something that I heard a little while ago, and that is, you don't know what you know until you teach. And I think standing up in front of a group of people, group of business owners that didn't know much necessarily about, you know, the creative process, started to build my confidence in being able to sort of project, you know, what I know to those people, not to tell them that they needed to do it like this, but to guide them with certain processes and give them opportunity to explore different creative ways within their business. And I think for me, that was a big thing, which means that I'm not quite so afraid of going into a meeting with 4 or 5 people and openly suggesting routes forward for them. So you've got a lot of knowledge, Adam, and I think probably, you know, doing something similar would potentially work for you and give you that confidence to get out. Two of the other things that from Sarah Jane that sort of cropped to mind. So the shielding thing, I think, sort of the mind shielding our processes, and that, I think that was really interesting for me, because I always kind of look at my background and where I've come from and kind of say that everything happens for a reason. And I guess to some degree, so when I've said that, it's kind of me thinking that the universe has guided me in that direction. And I'm starting to change my thought process on that now through that shielding principle. So yes, it's probably thrown some things at me, but has my mind shielded me from certain things to drive me in a certain direction? So I'm interested to know your thoughts on that, Sarah Jane, because I'm just starting to think in a slightly different way now.
Good. Addressing what all 3 of you have said collectively, the mind just puts judgment there. And Rachel, you were talking about procrastination. There are days where we go, well, I'm not sure. I feel like, you know, I have imposter syndrome right now. You know, is what I'm saying valid? Have I stolen it from other people? You know, this is stuff that I'm passionate about, though, and it's based primarily on my lived experience, my experience. And yeah, I do take the words of maybe someone like Brené Brown, you know, someone else, the authors that I read. I make notes. I've got books. You should see my books. They're covered in highlighter pens and all sorts of tabs and things like that. But procrastinating, there are days where we procrastinate, and that's okay. There are days where we just don't know what decision to make, and that's okay. We've got to take the wins. And you were talking, Simon, about perfectionism. There's no such thing as perfectionism, but we do the very best we can. And you're meant to trip up. You're meant to trip up. That's your opportunity to learn when you trip up. If it's all going swimmingly and there's nothing to kind of, you just breeze over it, and no one's having those conversations and saying, I like what you did there, however, then we can go, okay, let's have an open discussion about how we can change this. And the universe is always, I can't stress this enough, the universe is always working in your favor. And I've just been doing a course, the timing of it is quite incredible, about energy codes. And it's with a woman called Dr. Sue Morter, and she's from the Morter Institute of Bioenergetics in America. And she uses the analogy of, there's a joke, you've probably heard of it, where there's a man in his house and there's a flood and he's going to drown. And a boat shows up and says, hey, come on, we'll help you out. He goes, no, I've got this, I'm waiting for a sign from God. And then a helicopter comes along and says, hey, you down there, come on, let's help you. We're here to save you. No, I'm good, I'm waiting for a sign from God. And then 2 or 3 other things happen, and then he ends up drowning, and he goes to heaven and he says to God, God, where were you? Why didn't you help me? And he says, I sent you a boat, a helicopter. There are signs there, and we sometimes choose to take them. I mean, how many times have you had a gut feeling? And the universe sends messages to our gut. It comes in at a gut level and it goes up to our heart. And our heart is more powerful than our brain, much more powerful than our brain and our mind. Our mind goes, oh, hang on a minute, procrastinate, worry, stress. Is it right? Is it wrong? There are days where you make wrong decisions and we beat ourselves up for it. But we make wrong decisions, and some days we make all the right decisions. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no easy way out. It's doing the work, and it's hard, and some days are harder than others. But the universe is in your favor. Even the stuff that happens to you when you're younger, even the trauma, Adam, for you, anything that's happened in your childhood or in your teens or in your 20s, it worked in your favor. Now, you might not see it at the time. Of course we don't, because when something traumatizing is happening to us, we can't see the wood for the trees. It's deeply traumatizing. But it works in our favor. Because of that lived experience, you decide to go down this path. And because of that path, you choose to take this next path. And if you look at, it's a good exercise to practice, looking at where you are in your life now and how you've arrived here. And know that you're in control. You can create your life over and over and over and rebirth yourself over and over and over. You just have to get rid of that gunk in the mind. That gunk from 15 years ago, why is that there? And that's what stops us from getting, that gets in the way. That judgment, and we judge ourselves the worst. I've judged myself harshly. I know that my son judges himself. I know that Al judges himself. I know Adam judges. I know all of you judge yourself. We do. It's an internal built-in thing that just, it's almost, judgment happens at a subconscious level. So you were saying, Rachel, about doing things subconsciously. We do. It works at a subconscious level. But it's recognizing when we're in that place of judgment and going, whoa, okay, stop the music, stop everything. I'm in this judgment place. I'm going to breathe into it. I recognize its judgment. I'm going to just breathe into it. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to love it. And I'm just going to turn it into something more creative. I'm going to take this uncomfortable energy and make it shine.
I think you're speaking to emotional intelligence, aren't you, Sarah? And I think I believe through my own experience that developing a greater level of self-awareness around my triggers, my reactions, and the emotions that I'm feeling gives me that's what I was going to say earlier. This is all about unlocking our potential as business owners and marketeers, and for anybody, who focuses on this, who does this work, can unlock so much potential. Like you say, it's really limitless, so yeah, gaining that emotional awareness to and intelligence to be able to say, okay, I'm in reactive state. and I'm aware that I'm in a reactive state, and I can now make a conscious choice as to what to do next in this state, rather than simply remaining in reaction and everything being, you know, dependent upon that reaction. I can now take a step back, and that's been fundamental for me over the past few years, where for me, I can get into a reactionary state that can use up a huge amount of energy and prevent me from getting things done at work and showing up, and being able to take on information, because I may get triggered into a state of fight and flight, and you know, I can't be productive. But being able to kind of catch that a bit earlier, see, okay, this is potentially going to create that reaction, or I'm in that reactive state, I can go off, use tools that I've learned, you know, and then return to a you know, a more you know, process it and work through it, like you say, and feel it. I think I need to book a session with you, to be honest, because I think I'm so focused on trying to be productive and get stuff done. A lot of the time I will push those emotions down, I will block them, and I do feel like they get trapped. It's very hard to release them. But that then creates a knock-on effect to, you know, not feeling well enough or up to doing certain things and certain tasks, because I've got this kind of, you know, this blockage of energy that just feels super uncomfortable. I think this is super fundamental to our ability to, you know, relate to clients and market ourselves to the world and present what we do and communicate with the world without fear and without judgment. And ultimately, I think the most successful marketers are those that can do that.
I just want to jump in. I've got a few things I want to say. Adam, we speak an awful lot. I speak to all of you a lot. And, you know, we're always very mindful of kindness to ourselves and kindness to others. How many times has everyone on this panel, in this room, and everyone watching this, how many times has something happened that's really cheesed you off, really upset you, it's made you angry, and then the next person that hoves into view gets it? They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. You've had a bad moment, someone's cheesed you off, or you've upset yourself and you're in a state of anger, and the next innocent soul that crosses your path, we've all been there. This is what we're talking about. When you don't make the time to deal with that stuff, you're just going to pass it on to someone else. And when you pass it on, by the way, like a candle, you're not removing it from yourself and giving it to them, you're duplicating it. You're keeping it and you're just sharing that horror show with them. And now think about the knock-on effect of never processing, and then think about the challenges you've got in your business, your day, your life, your family, your parenting, your marketing, everything else. We build all this stuff up if we don't deal with it. And eventually, like a pressure cooker, something snaps and bad things generally happen in those situations. And that's because you said something really powerful, Sarah. You say a lot of things that's really powerful. And I agree, Simon. Sarah for TEDx, 100%, right? But you said something that resonated really massively. We're born, I don't know what your exact words, but you said we're born to fail. It's okay to fail. It's part of everything. And there's this wonderful, in the business universe and in the coaching universe, there's this wonderful mentality or philosophy around there is no such thing as failure. There is only lessons. And this is exactly relevant here. Because everything bad that happens to you, and I've been lucky enough to be coached by someone I think most of you know, and some of you will know out there, the wonderful Vanessa, who's not here today, but is here in spirit, and I'm sure will be champing at the bit to contribute. And you know, if we don't love the failure as much as we love the success, we'll just keep getting more failure, because we're trying to process a lesson. And until we process a lesson, we can't go on to the next lesson. And so if you keep ignoring the emotion, if you keep squashing it down and depressing it and getting rid of it and not doing the work you need to do, it's not going to go away. And if you don't believe me, you know, these tiny little things that seemingly are irrelevant to us. Damon Anita Roddick once said, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping in the same room as a mosquito. These emotions are like mosquitoes, and you might get rid of it, but you just moved it to another room, right? Until you destroy, and I'm sorry if anyone here is a fan of mosquitoes, the only animal I will happily destroy because they drive me mad. But if you just waft it into another room, well, the mosquito's still there. The third thing I want to say is, when babies are born, they don't know how to walk. And when babies are learning how to walk, they fall over millions of times. Imagine if we as adults had the resolve to keep trying to walk and learn like babies do. Because babies learn how to walk. They do not quit. They keep going and they get through it. And we have to get through it. But that failure, you know, the baby will have an emotional reaction. They plop down on their bottoms and they, you know, they have a little whinge. And then 2 seconds later, they're up trying again. And I think it comes down to understanding that failure is itself a self-judgment. If you think you failed at something, that's exactly the moment that you're judging yourself in. And then look at your life and your story and those emotions, and you'll find where it comes from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a great analogy for this, Al, which I'd like to share if there's enough time.
Dude, there's loads. Go.
Around this idea of having to fail, because I think we're scared of doing something wrong. And I think back, so about 10, 15 years ago, I had a real anxiety around driving. I was terrified of driving because I was so scared that I might mess up and another road user might get angry with me. And there was this fear. It wasn't even around, you know, the police or, you know, doing something illegal. It wasn't anything to do with that. It was just fear of people being annoyed at me and angry with me. And for ages, I didn't drive. I got the bus everywhere. I got the train everywhere. And I was an actor at the time and I was touring the UK. So I was schlepping up and down the country on trains. And I came to the conclusion that if I didn't sort this out, I was going to spend my whole life schlepping up and down the country on public transport, which wasn't much fun. So I allowed myself to mess up. Basically, I got behind the wheel. I mean, I didn't mess up too badly because, you know, I was on the road, but I made those little mistakes that, you know, new drivers and some people honked me, and it wasn't the end of the world. And I basically got myself into a situation where I can drive anywhere around the country, anywhere. And now I'm a very confident driver. I go all over the place, but it has completely opened up my world. Totally opened up my world. It's opened up my opportunities. It's opened up my potential. Opened up my potential as an actor. It's opened up my potential as a business owner now. So I think that to me was such a lesson in just allowing yourself to putting yourself in the situation where you might mess up, and you never mess up as badly as you think you're going to anyway. And I kind of had that car analogy is perfect for thinking about your business, because if you don't get behind the wheel, if you don't make those journeys and, you know, get yourself in a situation where somebody might honk you because you've gone a bit wrong and you've maybe messed up a little bit. And as long as you don't beat yourself up entirely for that, you're going to put yourself in a much better position, and you're going to open up your world essentially to success.
That's a good analogy, Rachel. Well, it's a story. It's something that happened to you. You know, our mind just stops us. It just, and for good reasons, to keep us safe, to protect us, to stop us from getting hurt. But we need to change the language that we use. So instead of failure, maybe we can just say, okay, well, that didn't work out today. That wasn't the right decision today. Tomorrow I'll make that better decision. Instead of going, we're failures, I'm unsuccessful, the language that, you know, we use quite limiting childlike language to describe our emotions as well. I'm sad, I'm mad, I'm happy. I mean, there's a whole language, a sea of language out there to describe how we're feeling. But we do let that emotion control us. It just takes over. And it's nonsense. We just need to get past that mind, that layer of the mind, to allow these infinite possibilities to come in, and then we can, for want of a better word, drop the drive or drive through and achieve greater things, because we've all got the capabilities. We all have. We are just such amazing creative beings, but we box ourselves in. We just literally put ourselves in a box like this. And we go, I'm in my safe box. And some days it's fine to be in your safe box. That's okay. If you want to feel safe today, you know, if it's, like recently it's been very cold, and it's, you know, Christmas is coming up, it's a stressful time for people, we want to just box ourselves in, and it's okay to have those days like that, but it's a free will and choice. So you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to make this choice today, or I'm going to make this choice today, and for each choice you make there's going to be a consequence, and as long as you're happy with that consequence, then there's nothing wrong with it at all. If you say, I've been feeling lonely for the last 5 years and I don't want to feel lonely anymore, and you know that you've got to go out there and introduce yourself to some people or join a dating app if it's a relationship you're looking for, yeah, that's making yourself vulnerable, that's taking a risk. But if you don't take the risk, you'll never know. So you just have to sometimes just push yourself and say, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I want joy in my life. I don't want loneliness. I don't want to feel depressed anymore. I don't want to feel this anger all the time. It's not necessary. The anger is because of something that happened when I was a kid 40 years ago, and I'm still holding on to it and I'm letting it control me. That's ridiculous. You know, it's just making those choices. I don't want to feel this. I want to feel this. And it's okay if we fall back. You know, we're constantly 2 steps forward, a step back, 2 steps forward, a step back. Sometimes we take huge leaps forward. Sometimes we take a bit of a leap back. All of it's okay. We just got to forgive ourselves. We beat ourselves up tremendously, but it's all about forgiveness, forgiving others, but forgiving yourself more importantly.
Can I working out who's going to unmute first? No, I was just thinking, like, taking it back to the business perspective as well. And obviously, you know, we're talking about how it's going to affect people and their ability to market their business or market themselves. And it came to mind that possibly as so for those people who have made the decision to go out on their own and be their own business owner, they don't want to work for anyone anymore, and that kind of means that we're responsible for everything. You know, from a starting point, you have to prioritize certain things, and for most people, the prioritization of money is of the utmost importance, and that means that the amount of time that they want to be spending on the job is going to be very high. So marketing is therefore not a priority. They don't see marketing as a priority for their business. Now, obviously, as we learn and we get more familiar with business, we start to see that what comes before sales, well, marketing comes before sales. And therefore we need to have that level of dedication to market ourselves successfully, and try to reprioritize ourselves slightly or dedicate more time towards the marketing side of things. And then, like you say, it kind of comes back into that being aware of actually where your knowledge lies, and being capable and forthgoing enough to be able to put that out into your marketing to try and bring people towards you. And I was always talking about the bee and the flower and stuff like that. So you know, it's just that level of prioritization, I think, from a small business owner is very important. When we grow and we surround ourselves with amazing people like we've got here today, and you feel that you can rely on those people more, or you can lean on them a little bit more for advice and help to guide you in the right direction, then that opens up a whole different world and a whole different way in which you can kind of cope with that initial structure. You know, even from a large corporate perspective, usually you're very focused on just the job you have to do. So there's no need to think about, like, from a creative perspective, years ago when I worked for an agency, I only had to concentrate on putting as many pieces of artwork out for advertising as I possibly could every day. I didn't have to worry about getting sales in. I didn't have to worry about converting customers. I didn't have to worry about marketing the business, because that wasn't my responsibility. I could focus on exactly what I wanted to focus on and what I felt I needed to focus on. But as a small business owner, we suddenly get a massive wave that comes over us, thinking we've got to do everything. So and I think that's from my perspective, especially, that was really overwhelming for me to start off with. You know, the focus is right. I've got to make this amount of money to live, And so therefore my focus is definitely on what I need to do to get that money rather than linking that into the marketing process.
I think you're absolutely spot on, Simon. How many of us know we need to do more? And Rachel, you talked about procrastination. I think it ties together perfectly. How many of us, especially when it comes to marketing, know we need to do more? But marketing is a tricky concept. It's a tricky universe, and also it's long-term results. It's long-term thinking. Whereas I've got 20 people I can call and try and sell to now. Well, I'm not going to do the marketing because that's complicated. I'll probably screw it up and I'll fail it, and I don't know what I'm doing, and it's all a mess. And bleh. So I'll just go back to sales because that's easy. That's black and white, right? Now, sales itself isn't easy. No disrespect intended to sales, but it's seemingly a lot easier than marketing because it's more immediate. But we go further than that. How many times? I mean, Rachel, you said it so well. How many times do we find something else to distract us willingly? How many times do we look at WhatsApp or the internet when we know we've got like 9 hours of work ahead of us? Why on earth are we looking at WhatsApp and the internet or whatever distraction takes our fancy? We're doing it because our story that kept us safe, for whatever reason that safety was compromised, our story tells us to do stuff that makes us feel safe. So if I don't look at that big elephant in the room, then I don't have to think about it and I can't fail at it. So I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to get lost in a game, some crap mini clip game. How many of us have wasted hours whilst working on some rubbish game? It was probably Pool or Angry Birds. My word, that was irony, wasn't it? Angry Birds, angry humans smashing away loads of time playing a video game about imaginary angry things who were taking their anger out on seemingly harmless pigs. I mean, those pigs, yeah. But the reality is, we do this all the time. Every single person watching this, if you made it to minute 57 and you don't think this is about me, it's even more about you. For everybody that's noticed and resonated with stuff during this session, please drop a comment. Please tell us what this brought up for you. Tell us what you think. We have unbelievably run out of time. We're going to have to get Sarah a TEDx talk, clearly, because we need a bigger forum for this. I've been coached by Sarah for 20 years. It's no accident we've been married for 20 years. I've been coached by Sarah for 20 years, and I now understand why she has been on the journey she's on. We only met our son 17 years ago, and yet her journey was clear as a healer from that point on, from the beginning of when we first met. I remember Sarah not enjoying the corporate environment. It was always destiny for Sarah to go down that path, and I'm so glad she did, because it's made me a much better human, and that's helped me hopefully help other people make themselves better humans too. Next month, we have a fantastic podcast that will be out on the 11th of January, featuring Paul Furlong of Opus Media, looking at the value of video. So if you think you've got imposter syndrome when it comes to your marketing, nothing accelerates that than video, because people are terrified about being on screen. So we're going to be talking about that and podcasts. I don't think we've got time to give everyone a wrap up, but I do want to give Sarah Jane a wrap up. What's your key takeaway from today, Sarah?
Well, I just want to quickly refer to Simon's comment about prioritizing. And, we're human, and we all get overwhelmed, and we feel overworked and inundated with things to do. We're not just running our business, but we're also parenting. Some of us might have elderly parents that are unwell. We're looking after other people as well as trying to run our business. And when it comes to marketing, the biggest thing, I mean, I'm a sole trader. I'd like to think that a lot of my business comes from word of mouth and recommendation. I think the biggest thing is to put yourself out there. Is to put yourself out there. And on the days where you don't feel like you want to put yourself out there, that's all right. But for the most part, try and put yourself out there. Try and breathe into this creation, these creative ideas and thoughts that we have, these amazing ideas and creations that we come up with all the time, but we're too scared to put out there because we fear judgment from them. from other people. And it's also our biggest problem or challenge is other people. You know, when we're pootling along in our business or sat at our desks and we're doing our thing, it's all good. But when someone comes along to challenge us and throws us, you know, throws us under the bus, throws us in the trash, we're like, whoa, because we care what people think about us. The biggest takeaway, I've just loved listening to everyone's thoughts and ideas, and I was kind of mindful of being distracted, I can't get my words out today, from the topic at hand, which was how trauma affects us in business and marketing. I think the biggest thing is to stop judging ourselves and to forgive ourselves. We're all just doing the very best we can. And we're all in this thing called life together. And we've got to be kind to each other, and we just got to help each other more and communicate. You know, if someone upsets us, say, you know, if Simon, for example, upset me, I could say, Simon, something you said earlier, it was hit a nerve. I understand it's my issue, but can we talk it through? And then give Simon the opportunity to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, happy to talk it through. As long as we're communicating, even if we know it's going to be an awkward, sticky conversation, have that conversation, because it opens up. Otherwise, you stay here in your box. And if you want to stay in your box, that's okay. That's absolutely okay. But we all secretly want to just break through.
What a great way to finish, with Sarah doing that. Seemed epic. Thank you everyone for being here. Panel, wave your goodbyes and say your goodbyes. You're welcome to speak, of course.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
We'll see you all next month. Sarah Jane, thank you very much. Before we go, if you want to know more about Sarah Jane, of course, how could I not give her a plug? Where should they go? They should go on Facebook and look up Hearts Holistic. Hearts Holistic, as in Hertfordshire, HERTS, Hearts Holistic. We'll post the link in everything we do. Until next month, see you later.